The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Kay Jewelers' early Black Friday sale is happening now. Get up to 50% off Black Friday deals and up to 40% off everything else. Don't miss this sale. Start your season with savings, only at Kay. Exclusions apply. See kay.com/exclusions for details.
The Last Show with David Cooper, where we utilize non-linear reverse, inverse, backward thinking protocols. It sounds like this.
Today we're discussing how young chimpanzees are out here in these streets inventing tools and upgrading adult chimp tool designs. Okay, maybe not in the streets, but let's talk about how kids can contribute to how culture evolves, not just for chimps, but also for ours. I'm here with someone who studied this. She's a primatologist and anthropology professor at the University of Montreal. Her name is Dr. Iulia Bădescu. Iulia, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
What got you first interested in studying young chimpanzees and how they use tools? It's always so strange watching them. They seem very human-like, and I know they are our cousins in some sense. What got you interested in all that?
Primatology, everyone comes to primatology in different ways, but I guess for me, I was really into the, if you know, Leakey's primates, Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall, who just died, and Birte Galdekast. And as a kid, that really fascinated me. But I think for me, what really fascinates me about chimps or any primates is trying to understand humans better, because we are so similar to chimps. And if you spend any time with chimpanzees, you can really see like there's a real recognition of something human in them. And then for the kids side, I guess, I'm a mom, so there's lots of similarities, I find. And even just the chimp play and object use and tool use stuff, I think my kid's at an age, and he's also autistic, but he's at an age now where he's like experimenting a lot with objects. So it was a natural sort of like point of interest, I think, for me.
You mentioned spending time with chimps, seeing these things, but for someone who's never seen a chimp in the wild, or I guess also in captivity, what would tool use look like in their everyday lives? Like, how do young chimps use tools to begin with?
Yeah, well, most of the descriptions of tool use in chimps or in any primates are often on adults. So little kids, chimps are often overlooked, but tool use in chimps is interesting. And it's a cultural trait. It's a cultural behavior. So there's different types of tools that they use in different communities. And at our site, they sometimes they process and use like stick tools to get honey. They love to dip for honey. There's termite fishing. That's a classic one. Sponging, like making leaves into a sponge in their mouths to drink water and then using it to like soak up water. There's a lot of kind of extractive foraging type of tools that they use. But then there's also communicative ones. Like a really cool one is adult males, when there's a female in estrus that they want to mate with, copulate with, they'll take a leaf and rip it and make a kind of like a sound. And that's like a flirting sort of attractive thing that attracts the female over to like mate.
It's like wearing a fedora, although maybe that's not cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's like a cool little, I don't know, love gift in a way.
Yeah. Okay. The fedoras, maybe. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's true. And so the kids sort of like learn, because they grow up in this environment, so they're observing and learning how to use these tools. But what I observed is interesting because, they were learning to use the tools, but then they were also experimenting outside of what's sort of typical or normal or normative behavior. So, they'd make a stick tool that they usually use for honey dipping and then, stick it in other holes in the trees and do stuff outside of the norm that adults don't usually do.
And when adults observe this kind of stuff, occasionally the kids invented something and they show the adult is what you saw.
Yeah, I guess that's the idea. I mean, I unfortunately I didn't observe any behaviors like a new innovation that then got picked up by the adults, but I observed like several new innovations because yeah, these kids are experimenting a lot and they're in this like cool phase of life. I mean, it's like humans too, in a nice phase of life where people are quite permissive of their behavior. Like if there's a child screaming on a plane, like most people, I mean, are annoyed, but you're kind of like, all right, it's a kid or it's a baby. And it's sort of the same thing with chimps. Like they'll do crazy stuff with objects or crazy stuff in general, and the adults are okay with it. And so the kids were experimenting with these tools, and most of the time they were doing stupid things like that didn't make any sense. You can't use a stick to drink water, but once in a while they come up with a new innovation that feasibly, like I could see, is useful. So, for instance, one kid used moss. There's like moss in a tropical forest. It's everywhere. So she used moss as a sponge instead of their like leaf sponging method. That's actually not that efficient. She decided to use a clump of moss to drink water. And that's like a cool, I mean, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but for a chimp, like that is a big deal. So that was a cool innovation I saw. I also observed doll play, which is like a kid used this stump of wood and she carried it around like a baby for like hours and hours, and she dropped it out of the tree and then got all like, oh no, and went down and got her little doll baby. And then the other thing I observed, the third innovation I observed was a young male, about 1 year old, a 1 year old male who used, the leaf ripping flirting thing that I mentioned. Well, he used it to get his mom to come back so he can jump on her back because he wanted to be carried. So he started leaf ripping at her so she would come back. And like that was his request for carrying, which is pretty like innovative.
It's sort of novel. It's taking one use of leaf ripping and then changing it to do something else.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm very curious about this leaf ripping to see if it works. I'm going to get some leaves and rip them for Valentine's Day for my girlfriend. But what does this say about how kids are contributing to the culture of the chimps where they hang out?
Yeah, I mean, it says, well, first of all, it says that I think as scientists or as adults, we often don't really pay attention to what kids are doing. And so and of course, no kid is going to be inventing like the next iPhone. I don't think, but we do, put a lot of sort of emphasis on adult innovations and adults sort of like propelling culture and cultural evolution forward. And so first it kind of says like, wait, kids are also doing interesting things. And what it says about kids is that often because they're in this like permissive stage where anything goes, and they're also cognitively like much more open to things because they don't really know the world. So they have this flexibility in their brains that adults don't really have. They're not like set in their ways. And so they're in this like perfect stage for them to really experiment and to add variation kind of outside of the typical patterns that we see. And even if it's sort of useless, at least they're still contributing novelty that then the adults can observe and also pick up on. And so even if it's not an innovation that's like the next iPhone, a kid could do something different with an object that an adult observes and it's like a source of inspiration for somebody who does create an innovation, like a technology later.
Do you see this happening with humans? Like, do you think there's parallels between this whole structure you're describing with chimps and us?
Yeah, for sure. And I actually was just at a research workshop in Denmark all about cultural evolution and play and innovation. And yeah, there are descriptions in humans too, like in hunter-gatherer societies of kids doing things outside the norm and kind of contributing through play because kids are playing, right? It's not necessarily like, I'm going to like invent a new tool. That's not what they're saying. They're more playing with what's going on, and so we see that in humans all the time too. Kids are contributing novel behaviors.
What do you hope people take away from your research about how we view kids today? Any particular takeaways you hope people would have?
I mean, yeah, just that kids are contributing. They're not just passive, sort of like useless little feeble beings. They're contributing. Also, I mentioned my kid's autistic. Sometimes I really wonder, like, okay, you know, he's also got like even more of that think outside the box mentality because he's just totally not ready to be normative in any way. And so that also kind of, just the idea that we can appreciate sort of thinking outside the box and behaving in a way that's not necessarily expected, I think that can really help. And kids are doing that all the time. So, yeah.
Iulia, I've enjoyed this chat. Thanks for talking to me about your research with chimps and some of the wider implications on I don't know, how culture evolves. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Dr. Iulia Bădescu is a primatologist and anthropology professor at the University of Montreal.